Forever Eat the Pastor, episode 15. Some thoughts on Charlie Kirk's assassination. This was, frankly, a really horrible week for the United States of America, for the world. And I don't know about for you, but for me, it just feels like there's this historic moment happening. And for me, it was like tuning in a week ago to just seeing what happened. I saw the headline that he had been shot. And so, of course, I go on Twitter, X, and I'm just trying to figure out, okay, what is going on? What is the story here? Is he going to survive this? And I'm like, God, please let him survive this. And so much like a lot of us who had kind of tracked in real time what was happening, you're just praying that he's okay, and then you get the word. There was like some hope in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden you get the word. I believe the quote I heard was from the President of the United States saying that Charlie Kirk, his friend, was dead, and he had been assassinated. And so then, much like I'm sure you, I just ran through just this series of emotions, like how could that happen? Why did that happen? And it's like this deep sadness and also just some deep anger. Like, how could we live in a place, how could we live in a world, how could we live in a country where something such as that can just happen? When somebody is on a college campus just having debate, discussion, sharing ideas with people who agree with him and disagree with him, people that really agree with him and really disagree with them. But yet for that to be, for someone to like shoot him, and for the world to basically see it happen in real time, just devastating and heartbreaking. And so for me, just a couple of observations, and this is just from me to you, and you can agree, you can have your own take, you can disagree, but I just talked to a lot of people this past week, and a lot of people want to talk about this. And a lot of people, frankly, they want to hear from pastors. They want to hear from people who have been in the trenches of ministry, of life, and are trying to navigate in real time faith in Jesus. And so just here's some thoughts. It's like the first thing that struck a chord in me that just broke my heart is like, this is a man with a wife and 2 daughters, and now his wife does not have a husband, and his daughters do not have a dad. And that, I mean, come on. That's the worst. That is the worst. My deep value system is like Jesus at the epicenter of the whole thing. And it's like my wife at the top of the triangle. And then my kids. And it's like, or I had every day, I literally have that triangle. It's like that's the deep value system that I have. And the more I've heard, the more videos I've seen about Charlie Kirk, is like he shared that value system. He shared that love for his wife. Like, I didn't know a ton about Charlie Kirk. I'd seen, probably like a lot of us, seen the videos. I knew he was just a deeply, deeply intelligent man. I knew he was deeply committed to his faith in Jesus. I know that he went to college campuses, and what I view as he did some work that was really good. He talked to people about important things, and he was willing to like have discussion and debate and talk about things with people. But the thing that I just saw over and over as I saw more videos in this past week is that man deeply loved his wife. I saw a couple of videos of like their love story. They're telling about how they met, and just you can just see it in their eyes. They deeply loved each other. You can just see it in his eyes that he just deeply loved his daughters. There's this one scene where he had just finished up on this segment on some news broadcast, And his daughter was just waiting and waiting and waiting in anticipation for him to be done. And then it's like done, the lights turn off, and his daughter just runs towards him and hugs him and embraces him and just so happy to be with her dad. And her dad was just so happy to be with his daughter. Yeah, that stuff just breaks my heart. And so like from a human level, like so many of the responses are like a political level and ideological level. I'm just much more interested, at least in this moment, of like the human side of this. Like that's a man who had a wife. That's a man who had 2 daughters. That's a wife and 2 daughters who no longer have a husband and a father. That is heartbreaking. Whatever the scenario, whatever the situation, that is heartbreaking. I've seen in 22 years of full-time youth ministry so many scenarios where there's breakdown, a loss of a father, a loss of a dad, a husband, that just has really, just really difficult, just a really difficult scenario. And so just my heart breaks for them as a family. My heart breaks for that whole, like even his parents, his sister. And then just the other level of this that I've learned more in this past week is this was a man who was deeply devoted to his faith in Jesus. He was just principled in God's word. He was deeply committed to living out his faith in Jesus. And he would go to these college campuses, and his faith in Jesus was just like the number one thing, like the non-negotiable. And he would get into politics, and he'd get into ideology, and he'd get into like economics, and he'd get into all these other things. But what was at the epicenter of his whole thing was his faith in Jesus. And so as I like break all of that down, and as I think about that, it's like, oh man, those are the things that I believe in the most. Like my faith in Jesus, my trust in God, my commitment to God's word, my commitment to the values of God's word, and my family. I mean, those are the things that I value the most in this whole story that I'm trying to live out. And those were the things that mattered most to him. And so then it's like you push that forward, and there were just like a person, maybe people, who wanted him dead for those values, for those commitments. And so then the reaction, I mean, that's been just the most fascinating sociological thing that I've seen maybe in my lifetime. It's just the reaction to this. And so first, and I'll just quickly, like, I mean, to see on one side just the cheering on, the piling on, the celebrating. I mean, come on. I mean, what is that? That's been hard. That's been hard to see. It's been hard to see that the reaction of some people was that. And then, like, how did we get to that place? Like, what were the factors that led people to react in that way? And I don't know the answers, and I'm not even going to pretend to understand all of that. But that's something that we probably should explore in depth in this country, around the world. Like, what are the deeper issues at play there? Like, this was a man with a family who was assassinated in broad daylight, and to celebrate that for any reason, I think we need to consider what is at play there. But then much more like on the other side of that, which has been very fascinating, it's just people's draw towards God, people's draw towards faith. I mean, the only other historical moment in my lifetime that I can recall something similar to this was 9/11. And you saw churches just fuller that Sunday than they had been in years, maybe in decades. And there's reports around the country that there's just churches were just very full this past Sunday. And I just scrub through Twitter and just see, I mean, there's people with 200,000, 500,000, 1 million followers, people that said they haven't been to church in 10 years, that they're going to show up. There's like one dude that went and bought a suit to show up for church on Sunday. There's like people, even famous people, that are asking the question like, hey, I just feel pulled towards church, but what do I do? What does that even look like? And so churches, Christians, like, we need to consider that. Like, just the barriers to entry sometimes. Like, how do we just be a place where people can just come right in and just enter in and find the thing that they're looking for, especially in the midst of something so tragic as this? And so again, these are just questions. These aren't formulated. I'm not saying, hey, we need to do this, and this. But we need to be considering these things. There's something happening across the country right now. There was a march in England of like millions of people that was triggered by this assassination of Charlie Kirk. And again, that's been brewing there. That's been stirring there for a while. There's been political unrest. But there was a lot of people in that march that were holding signs for Charlie Kirk. There's something happening here. And 1 week in, I'm not even going to pretend for a second to have that figured out. I have no idea the deeper implications here. But I think Christians, we should be paying attention to this. And I know a lot of you are, because a lot of you are feeling the same things. You've been talking to me. I've been talking to a lot of you. You're feeling a pull. I had a friend who was just like, man, I just recently am married, and we have a 6-month-old daughter, and I just want to get stuff in order. I just want to do right by my wife and my daughter. And it's like there's stuff happening here that's significant and important and good. And like the deep values that I believe in, the deep values that many of us as Christians believe in, people are like, their eyes are open to the deeper reality that they need to like figure this stuff out and start to lean into this. And I don't know about you, I know sometimes Christians, we can just get so discouraged by the ways that society and culture is like pushing back against faith and Jesus and church and Christianity. Well, right now, culture is leaning in to faith. Right now, culture is leaning in to faith. And so Christians, pastors, leaders, followers of Jesus everywhere, let's lean in right back. Let's help each other like figure this out and answer these questions that many of us are having right now. I mean, there's some good and evil at play. The spirits, the principalities of darkness that we read about in the scriptures, like you can see this stuff play out in real time. I'm not sure there's a moment in my lifetime where you can just turn on the news, you can go through a social media feed, and you can see in real time this play out. And maybe you're sitting there listening to this right now and like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Take a look around, listen up, ask the questions. It's happening. But one last thing that I just want to encourage us, I want to maybe challenge us with. I think is just deeply important in this moment is one of the reactions as we see some of the darkness that's happening. We can focus on it. We can just gaze into the darkness and almost get lost that that's the story here. But that is not the story here. I see a lot of light. In fact, I see more light right now in America than I have seen maybe in my entire lifetime. And maybe you're not seeing that, and you can totally disagree, and you can totally think differently, but I would encourage you, maybe look for the light. I believe that God is doing something massively significant, and I think we all should play a part in that. I think we all should excitedly play a part in that. And so, Jeremy, what do you mean? What does this look like? We get an opportunity to actually live out the way of Jesus. We get an opportunity to be a light in this world. We get an opportunity not to look at whoever we disagree with, whoever we think differently, whoever we may look and say, oh, that's disgusting, that's repulsive, oh, the world has lost the plot. And we can just choose to look at this other side and be like, no, I can bring light into this world. I can bring light into the darkness. And by the way, there are so many people right now that are looking for light. Find them. Help them. Be helped by them. Join them. Bring the light of Jesus into this, into your community. So often when we look at the news, when we look at our whatever social media feed of choice, it's just darkness and the big story that's like, what is going on? I just don't even understand how anyone could think that way. What if instead of looking at this macro global thing, we just look into our community and be like, where can I bring the light to my neighborhood? Where can I bring the light to my local community? If you've got kids in school, how can I bring light to the other parents in my community? In my schools, in my local area? How can I be the light of Jesus? And you're like, well, what does that look like? Here's the thing. You're going to hear this from me a lot in this podcast. It's like, what does it look like to just bring light and love and hope to the person who's right there in front of you? The person who's right there. We so often gaze in the distance as this big, bad world that's doing all this big, bad stuff. What if we just gaze in the person who's right there in front of us and we just love them? We just check in on them. We just see how they're doing. We ask them questions not in New York, I'm on Long Island, and we have this thing where it's like, how you doing? You good? 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 You good? Good? Good. And it's like there's movement as you're doing it. You just fly right by each other. Good? Good? Good. You're good? What if you stop? It's like, how are you really doing? You have no idea, if you aren't used to doing that, the impact that can have. It is one of the most powerful things that we can do just as human beings. But if you're a Christian, we should be doing this all the time. And by the way, a part of that is to also be open and honest and vulnerable about the ways you're actually doing as well. And when you open and honestly ask other people how they're doing, and then you're also open and honest with how you're doing, just wait, just watch how God will use you. Just walk around, smile at people, cheer people on, check in on them. That is how we're light of Jesus. That is how Jesus is going to shine so brightly in this dark moment. And I believe with all my heart that God is going to redeem this incredibly dark, incredibly hard, incredibly painful moment. I already see it. I mean, when Charlie Kirk's wife got in front of the nation and addressed the nation with just incredible strength and bravery, it's like, oh, there is an incredible force of good happening here as well. And so Christians, friends, probably if you're watching this, you're a friend of mine. Like, let's move forward and be the kinds of people that Jesus wants us to be. That when we see that person who's right there in front of us, that we just love them for love's sake, even if they disagree with us, even if they vote differently than us, even if they think differently about this whole thing. It will start to change the world all around you. If each of us starts to change the world around us, stuff's going to happen. I know. Like, I see this happen all the time. We've got a church full of teenagers, a church full of amazing adults that are doing this. They're living this out. God is moving all around us, working some incredible ways all around us. You want to participate in that. I don't know Charlie Kirk. I never met him, obviously. I know that he deeply wanted to live out the way of Jesus. He wanted to give everything to his wife and kids. He wanted to give everything to the person who was right in front of him. Even rewatch the videos. Even when he disagreed, there was like a compassion there. There was an empathy there. There was a kindness there. It's like, be very careful to believe the stuff that you're seeing. I've watched now a lot of videos. There's a deep compassion and empathy that he went about this whole thing with, which is actually very surprising. I kind of had him tagged as like this more gotcha guy. When you watch the videos, it's like, no, this guy was like full of grace. He cared deeply about truth. It was his whole thing, truth. But he was a guy who was full of grace. And so just to wrap this up, Jesus had said he came full of grace and full of truth. That is the way. Let's be full of truth. Let's not deny the things that are true. Let's not water it down, as we so often get afraid to do. But let's also be the most gracious people that there are. Let's just love people the way Jesus came and loved each one of us. Let's do that. Let's do that together, and let's just let God change the world all around us. Let's let God come in and change us. And let's let God work all around us. And the next time you like turn on the news, you turn on the big picture thing and you're like, oh, I'm so angry. Turn it off. And go into your neighborhood, go into your friends, go make new friends, your neighbors, go take a walk and just love your neighbor. Just go love your neighbor as yourself. The next time you're interacting with that person who's right in front of you, whoever it is, just love them for love's sake. Just love them because they exist. Just love them because they're a son or daughter of the one true living God. Just care deeply that they exist.